Well, welcome to office hours, everyone. Beginning of November, at least here in Boston, it's sunny, surprisingly warm, and here we are. So normally we start with announcements or highlights. I don't think I have any. We've seen a couple of complaints about some bugs in the 5.0 packaging. We should fix them. None feel like a fire drill. I don't know if anyone else has announcements. If not, next up is kind of a open section for questions, issues, PRs people want to discuss. The intent here is somewhere for any community members who drop by to ask questions. It's like really the most open of the open hour portion. So, okay, well, nice to see some new faces. And if you do have questions, feel free to just fire them out, interrupt, whatever. And moving into agenda items. So I assume that is you typing, Mike, or someone who's asking if we want to have a 502 bug fix release?
I'm asking on behalf of Alessandro, but he's let me know that there was a fairly reproducible crash in BPF for Linux, and there's a known fix. So he's concerned that we should get that out because it's a crashing problem, and it's in the default configuration. I don't know if Alessandro wants to elaborate here.
Yeah, the crash is pretty bad. It's really easy to cause it. So it would be nice to release a fix as soon as possible.
I mean, what do you feel about trying to get a 5.1 out?
Yeah, actually, I was wondering how many things are still manual when we do a release. Like, I know we have the osquery code sign workflow. It is going to sign Windows for sure.
I don't think anything's manual.
Okay, so we should be able to do it pretty easily, I guess.
Sounds like a good opportunity to test out the full. Like we should do it and see if it works.
We did that for the 5.0. I think the manual steps are like we still have to write the change log, and the website release stuff is pretty manual. There's a lot of automation there, but it's ultimately manual still.
I think the chocolatey package still needs like a very small amount of love, but like it's supposed to be super close to we can just Choco push. But that, like, I think I don't remember the specific of what it is that it needs, but it's a really, really small thing. And I think I've had a outstanding to-do item to fix that I just haven't gotten around to.
My inclination would be to try and get it out as a 5.1. I feel like the patch level releases are really for like, we made a really big packaging error and we want to just ship something like, a week later. Whereas like at this point, like why wouldn't we just call it a 5.1?
If we do a 5.1, I really want the Apple Silicon support to make it. And we have this PR that's still draft because it's not 100% ready, but it's like 90% ready. It's the next agenda item. So after we discuss that, maybe we can figure out what a good, reasonable time for 5.1 is.
So you mentioned wanting to go over the PRs, and I think we could also take a look at whatever PRs you think we want. We could shunt them into the 5.1 milestone. We could move things into a 5.2 milestone. We could basically just pay PR triage and see where we land. Is there a reason you're pushing for the M1 support in 5.1?
Yeah, it's all for a customer, and I feel like if we don't do if we don't get it in 5.1, then it won't make it in 2021.
That's fair.
That's my concern.
Shipping releases is a lot easier, but with only a month and a half left, I don't know if we'd ship a second one.
Mike, how long do you think it would take to get it done?
Well, I put up a list of things on the end of the PR conversation just to kind of go over what we finished. I think right now it's like really last final step. I think Stefano was working on some readmes. Are you done with those? Stefano?
Not. Yeah, not yet, but that will be, that is quick to do. And I think the major part is the signing right now.
Yeah, the CI. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, CI and signing.
So is this? So one of the things, I don't think we have fabulous M1 CI stuff, and I know you were exploring cross compilation. Is the current PR using cross compilation?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I'll ask this, Mike.
I know.
And, feel free.
I know what you're about to ask. How can we do this without CI? Confirming the tests and everything. Well, okay. But if I'm not getting ahead of us, maybe we could have a pre-support or initial support, not promising it, maybe not listing it on the website, but at least producing a signed build that includes a native M1, maybe as an interim fallback. But okay, but you were going to say something, so please.
I was going to say something totally different.
Okay.
If you have cross compilation working using the existing GitHub's stuff, then I think it would be a very small amount of work to make sure that we could sign that. And I would be totally down with shipping that in the sort of, this might not be officially supported, but like it's unofficially supported, the same way we did for ARM64. That seems pretty safe to me. The thing I wanted to say or mention, and I don't know what you can divulge or not. I don't know what your customer obligation is, but I think there's another step that we'll have to do, which is figuring out how to stitch together a universal binary as part of the CI flow. And I don't feel the need to do it in this PR. Like I know how to do it. The commands are easy. It's like a couple of lipo commands. But there's just like, where do we hang that in our packaging build flow? Probably in the code sign flow. It's probably easy, but it doesn't have to be in this PR is what I'm getting to.
So it is actually already there, the signing.
Oh, nice.
So if you merge it right now, you will get what I have detailed in the README. You will get universal packages for tragedy and PKG. I was told that if you want to create the sign package from the osquery code sign, you will have to sign both the binaries and then stitch them together. So it's not enough to take the unsigned package data with universal binaries and sign it. So we still have to do some work on the other repository.
I'm not sure. I've seen weird inconsistencies in my own tinkering here, and I haven't chased them all down. There's just weird stuff, and it also depends on what version of macOS. Like my machine is Mojave, or this machine is Mojave. I have other machines, and Mojave does not correctly run a gatekeeper check on a universal binary the first time. So there's some Mojave is real weird on universal binaries, but I think that's a Mojave specific bug, and Mojave is now out of support, so we can maybe not care.
So the stitching on the workflow in osquery is being run on the Big Sur machine. So because we wanted to have the latest versions of the tools, so hopefully it will work fine.
Do we want to distribute only universal, or do we want to distribute universal plus each flavor?
Right now, we removed the single binaries, and it is only uploading the stitched binaries.
Ultimately, I think we want to distribute universal binaries for simplicity.
they're twice as big. So I feel like it wouldn't be wrong to distribute all three, at least through the GitHub releases pages. Whether we put them all on our main website is a different.
Okay.
And where I'm going with that is I think if we wanted to distribute all three, the stitching should probably be done by the code sign repo, or like it would be after the code sign step.
I was thinking of stitching them twice. Otherwise, we will not have the unsigned packages anymore. Or rather, they won't be universal.
The packaging step comes after the code signing step, though, right?
It's yes, but the artifacts which we upload are running the osquery packaging code. So to generate the unsigned packages, we still have to stitch them.
I'm sure that makes sense, and I'm kind of just want to roll with it until I look at a PR.
I think what is saying that is that we normally prepare packages that are unsigned, so that we at every PR, at every commit, so that we can test those packages, even if again they are not signed. And so there is this first step of packaging, and in this first step of packaging, we also create the universal binary there. But then when we want to do a release, we want to have again the universal binary. So there's we create it twice.
To ignore the universal thing and just focus on the packaging thing, what you just said was that for every time we run a build and like upload artifacts, we create a package that we can kind of make sure we're testing that workflow. And of course, that package is unsigned. And then on the release, we sort of sign things, and then we throw away that old package and create a new package. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think we should follow exactly that same flow for stitching then. Which it sounds like is what you did.
I would just throw out there that if it's going to make things easier for folks, it would be fine with me if we shipped only the universal binary. Like, I mean, just looking at osquery I've got running locally on my Mac, it's 21 megabytes. Like, if it were 42, I don't think that would make much difference to me. It's hard to imagine it making much difference to most Macs.
It's not that big a deal. You'd notice it on the on your download servers. That's about it.
Yes, right. And in fact, I've been looking at such things over the last couple of days. It can be very expensive.
Yes, it can. Aside from that, but the thing is on my download servers, and probably yours as well, Zach, you would just ship the universal ones anyhow, because it's a pain in the neck to have the client determine what it wants. So
yeah, I mean, I'll make it work with whatever we decide to go with. So I'm just advocating for what's going to be easier to move forward. And in the future, if someone needs separate packages, then they can advocate for that. But again, I don't feel super strongly. I'm just trying to enable folks to get it done.
Okay, well, based on what we want to get done in the initial PR, we should figure out a time frame that maybe some people on the TSC can set aside some time, review the PR, and move it forward. Not today, it's not ready, but maybe as soon as next week, if that sounds reasonable. If anyone can find time in their schedule next week. And I know it's a big chunky PR. I just want to make sure I want to do something that can help us get through that big chunky PR.
I'm excited about the work. I did download a PR artifact and run it on an M1 machine a little while ago, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
basics work.
I'm excited that we, for instance, being able to split up Intel and ARM, we were able to reintroduce AVX extension support on an x86, and so x86 gets faster as well, like in RocksDB and such.
No, the whole thing seems exciting. I just don't quite know how to wrap my head around the size of that PR.
I knew that someone would say that, so I put a list of kind of breaking down what all of these files changes represent, sort of in categories. And I can't, in good conscience, encourage anyone to skip or skim like reviewing, but you'll see that some changes are repeat. Some changes are responsible. The upstream is responsible for making those changes that we've just incorporated. So if once you mentally put those aside, that's about 2/3 of the PR.
I mean, I'm also sure a huge amount of it is basically just changes in the dependencies and the third-party builds and all of that stuff.
Well, in general, that represents most of it.
Yeah.
The last, maybe 10% is we fixed a table or a test.
Yeah. So. Is there any way we can split the PR up into other things? Because like, I can't imagine anyone's going to argue about. So this is a little bit of a practical question, right? Because I can't imagine anyone's going to quibble much over like upgrading and twiddling dependencies. Like maybe, but the thing I think is more likely is maybe there'll be discussion around some of the table changes or some of the tests. And I find GitHub does very, very badly with PRs of this size and sort of any real, like if you try and have a discussion in the PR with a PR of this size, it tends to just break the GitHub flow. So I don't know if there's a simple answer for that.
Okay. Are there table changes in here?
We are on M1 dropping support for non-functional tables. I think ICU, LLDB. And then we're also recommending those be deprecated in general because I'm not sure, like for instance, the LLDB table actually functions anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm taking my...
I'm linking the commits in the README. The table changes are minimal.
There are, I think, a couple of fixes, but yes, we are at least on M1. But again, we suggest to do the same for others. LLDPD, because at least it's a table that expects to communicate with a daemon that is installed normally by the distribution. Problem is that there is no easy compatibility in the communication protocol between the library we compile as osquery and the version that the daemon is. So yeah, as soon as the version changes, you are not able to communicate with the daemon. So it's problematic. So right now it doesn't work. At least it doesn't seem to work at all unless you have the precise version osquery is compiling with. And then we have SmartMon tools, so here the problem is that SmartMon tools does not have a library. We have used a library that has been built around the SmartMon tools repository, which means that they had the original author had done a refactor plus added this library wrapper around those functions, but it is old. It has not been updated, and so for sure we will have to update that code with the latest SmartMon tools for it having work. Sorry, for it to work under M1. And anyway, it's really too big of maintenance job, yeah, because again there are many changes inside the SmartMon tools that now has changed quite a lot. And it is already not working on macOS, even though we have active, especially since it only supports SATA, the SATA protocol. So no SCSI, no NVMe, etc.
So yeah. All of these fixes sound like things we want. I'm just worried about trying to review them all in one PR.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the Apple Silicon support PR just do not add any support for the SmartMon Tools table and the LLDPD one. The suggestion of then removing SmartMon Tools and LLDPD are just suggestions right now. There's no work being done for that. Yeah. The other work on the tables are fixes. I think those were also affecting macOS on x86. So I guess maybe we can extract those, but definitely they won't be the bulk of the PR, which are just library changes.
That's the practical concern I have, is I think the bulk of the PR is very non-controversial library changes, right? And I think like I'll eyeball them, but and I'm sure Zach will as well, and Teddy if he's around. But I think then the things that like I want to actually read and understand, like having those intermingled will be just practically speaking difficult for me and for the GitHub JavaScript.
Yeah, I mean,
completely agreed with what Seth's saying there. I think splitting up the PR will just make it easier for us to understand which changes need more attention and which need less attention.
I'm not sure how feasible that is. Because
agreed. Yeah, I mean,
at the beginning of this, y'all said it was going to be hard to split this because it wouldn't really work in pieces. So I don't know what we want to do for that.
Yeah, so if you are going to split the fixes and you want to obviously look at the fixes better, you can, and you can test on x86, but obviously you won't be able to test on M1 unless you use our the other PR, which I mean you can still do in the background. And
is the I know y'all sometimes really try and have your commits stay clean. Are your commits broken up reasonably on this?
Oh yeah. Each commit. So yeah, basically each commit has touches a single library, or each commit has a fix specifically on a table or on a test, so you can separate or put them together easily.
Maybe the right way to review it is effectively commit by commit, and then like if I have any issues with it, I can just be like, hey, this commit, let's talk about it or something. And
yeah, exactly. So we normally, well, for everyone really, any collaborator, but we normally work like that. Yeah, we limit every commit change to the smallest atomic unit that makes sense, so that it is easy to review and if you want to remove it, etc. But yeah, if you think it will be better.
I don't know. I guess I really wish the library updates could come in on a separate PR. So, yeah. Okay, but I guess bouncing up a level. Mike, you really don't want to cut a 5.1 until you can get the M1 stuff in?
Yeah. But I mean, I discussed with Alessandro about this because he really does want a sooner 5 dot something for the bug fix. But I think if that means I have to tell the customer like M1 support is 2022, that's really bad for us. So I have to as trail of bits, we have to kind of push for M1 and 5.1.
I guess I see 3 options, right? One of them is we cut a 502. One of them is that we delay a BPF fix until M1 is ready, and one of them is that we do a 5.1 and 5.2 in 2021.
I'm cool with number 1 or 2.
I'm kind of opposed to a 502. It feels a little bit against our current theory. Like we've instead taken the tact of just saying, nah, we should just cut minor releases whenever we feel like it. It has been our official stance. Like it's no less work for us to do a 502 than a 5.1. They're identical work. The only difference is kind of what it signals to the external world.
Do crashing bugs have any special urgency in the past?
Not if we've already ignored them for a month.
I think we're aware of it, so I wouldn't call it ignoring, but yeah. I guess if you say we've made it this far, okay, yeah.
I mean, we didn't cut a release. So like the only times we've cut patch releases recently is the like, oh, we really broke that package. That doesn't install at all. And we never promoted a release to stable. But because we don't like to edit history, we went and cut a patch release. So like patch releases seem like this very narrow fix in that context. Because once we cut a tag, we try and keep it immutable.
Okay. Well,
I mean, that makes sense to me as what we've been doing, but wasn't one of the goals of improving the automation to make it such that we could cut releases more often? And should we consider releases. Doing that here?
Absolutely. I think we could do a 5.1 and 5.2 before the year end if we wanted to.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's the thing that I feel like maybe Mike is reacting as if Seth is saying we can't do 2 releases. And I think Seth is just saying if we do 2 releases, it should be 5.10 and 5.20.
Okay. Well, we split the difference or something here. 5.1, if we could commit to November 30th, can we triage it down to make that possible? Like there's a lot on this milestone. I think it's been just a holding list, like usually the next release always is. Yeah.
Okay, Nick, before you go, do you care about anything?
No, I mean, I can weigh in. I'm in favor of more releases.
No, anything that isn't this.
No. I'm gonna try to make sure that we continue to iterate on making this automated release pipeline as automated as possible. That's what I care about, is like putting us in a state where I'm no longer in the loop for any of the critical release processes. And I think we've largely gotten there, but there's still like a small bit that I can do. So I'm going to help on that, but yeah, I got to duck out to another meeting. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Nick. All right. So how about this? Tentatively, I'll put a day, December 31st on the 5.2, and then we'll try to shuffle the goals around to make both those milestones manageable. Can we do that?
So I think we should review the milestones and the PRs that we want to get out the door. Mm-hmm. And I think that we should recognize that they're all super flexible. Like we have always been willing to basically just shove any PR. Like at the point in time we're like, yeah, we should ship, we'll just shove everything that isn't in the release forward to the next release. We've always been very sloppy about these milestones, and I don't feel the need to change that. Where I don't feel the need to demand formality all of a sudden to like delay a release.
No. Okay, well, for planning purposes,
I think we should go over them.
If we plan to attempt end of this month and end of next month, and then divvy up the PRs, do you want to not PRs, milestone goals? Do you want to discuss that now, or
yeah.
Okay.
I'd probably even be happy to do a 5.1 before end of the month, and that gives us a little bit more buffer on the 5.2.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I'm thinking you're talking about December 31st, and you'll be in trouble if you don't get it shipped in 2021. Like, what if we try and get 5.1 out next week around mid-November, and we try to get 5.2 out around mid-December?
Sure. I just put milestone dates as deadlines, but certainly sooner is better. We just need to wrap up the work on the PR and then get it through a review. And so realistically, maybe we'd merge it late next week. That's what I was thinking.
So the only reason to cut a 5.1 sooner than that M1 release is that if Alessandro thinks it's important enough to get a BPF patch out.
Well, the 5.1 is only a week or two away.
We could cut it today if we were ready. Like the only pressure to get 5.1 out, I think, is that BPF bug.
That's my understanding as well. So if we don't think we need to get an urgent-ish fix out for that bug, then I'm fine with just saying we'll cut 5.1 when M1's ready. But if we need to get the urgent fix out, I'd say we cut 5.1 as soon as that patch is ready, and then we cut 5.2 basically as soon as M1 is ready.
So we have a couple of people from GitHub security that are waiting for the fix. And there's another company that I don't know the name. But yeah, they are aware of the bug and they are blocked by it.
Well, let's take a quick look at the... Did that fix merge?
No, not yet.
Okay, so we need to merge that. Do you happen to know what pull it is?
Not yet. Let me check.
Okay, I'll look for it and make sure
Is it
it's in this
7302?
milestone.
7302 maybe?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, that's
I just added it to the 5.1 milestone.
Thank you. I think Mike and I are doing the same things at the same time.
Right.
Okay, so we look at the 5.1 milestone quickly. We're just going to shunt some things into a nebulous future. Distributed queries execute regardless of discovery. While that is a bug, I don't think anyone's working on it. Documentation about glibc 212. I don't think anyone's doing that.
Well, we are actually, partially doing that during the M1 port. We have updated various readmes, but yeah.
Awesome. More glibc 212 support for third-party libraries. I bet we'll get some of that with all your library work, but it's not going to block on that. Smoke tests for build artifacts, definitely not going to block on that. New package generator on CI, yeah, not going to block on that. iBridge table is broken on T2 devices. Well, that sounds important, but I don't think we're working on it. We have the complicated uptime API inconsistencies, not doing anything there. Some weirdness on FIM. That's probably important, but I don't think anyone's looking at that right now, right? Yeah, okay. CLI flags, yeah, that's still a real bug. Watchdog total size, maybe Charvel's doing something, but I'm not going to block a release for that. osquery dumps core when unable to connect to an enrollment endpoint. I'm not even sure that's a bug. I don't know yet.
That one looks like it's been waiting on some input for a long time. Possibly it should even be closed because we have not got any input from the user for a long time.
I will.
I'll follow up on that and see if we can close this.
Cool, thank you. Update libmagic. I'm not gonna block on that. Maybe you're doing that anyhow.
Yeah.
Evaluate impact of reported thrift vulnerabilities. I'll leave this one in here. Update thrift submodules.
That one's addressed by the update.
Yeah, exactly.
In Apple Silicon PR.
Okay, is updating thrift modules also covered under that? You were talking about that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay, cool. I'm going to take it out of this milestone. Support for continuous build releases. That might even be done. I'm going to take a look at that, and I'm going to take it out of this milestone. Update CMake. You were doing something with that.
Yeah, that's actually another thing to do for the M1 support. But yeah, it was already started. I need to finish it.
Fix check for Pi support. You started that. You decided to put that down, right?
Yeah, it needs that other. It needs to have CMake updated, but it is also not blocking, so you can move it. Yeah.
Yep. Here's some packaging crap for me. I'm just gonna get rid of all that. Local time. We still should do that. I'm not gonna do that now, though. CI actions runner for Big Sur. Didn't we do that?
This is done. Is going to be done in the M1 support.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have 7310 enabling BPF causes memory limitations to be reached. No osquery restarts. I'll leave that in here. That's probably fixed by this. Update libarchive. I bet that's future work. Okay, there you go.
That's done on the M1 support.
Okay, well, poof, there's now a lot less stuff inside this milestone, Mike. And a lot of the stuff on the 5.2 can also go forward. One thing that I have lurking is that the osquery IP tables table is kind of about to be broken. And I think the Trail of Bits Linux folks know about this. Maybe.
Yeah, we kind of know there was an issue with it. We didn't look into it yet.
Okay, there's an issue somewhere. I filed it. The NF tables implementation changes the underlying APIs enough that we can't just, like, it just doesn't work. We have to rewrite the table to use NF tables. And I think y'all were saying that maybe we need to drop CentOS 6 as well to get an NF tables library.
We're not really sure, but I'm certain it will help.
I'm okay.
Yeah, there are many things
dropping
pending.
CentOS 6.
Sorry, what did you say?
I'm okay dropping CentOS 6. Zach, you got anyone running CentOS 6?
Not a problem in my perspective.
So,
on this note, I was curious how many people are using CentOS 7.6 or 7.8 for the pull request image for BPF.
If you ask me after this meeting, I can look at the percentages in the Clyde fleet, but I don't know how many CentOS customers we have anyhow.
I see.
Okay. Mike, were there other PRs you wanted to discuss?
I mean, we've discussed Puffy Sid's PRs a few times. I don't know if there's anything new to say about them. We
Just
still
let our
have them there.
PR count trickle up a little bit. Always makes me feel bad.
He's trying to get them somehow incorporated in our Apple Silicon PR, so I'm going to respond to that with a no.
Thanks.
So for the pull requests that implement binary parsing for Mac O and ELF, I can help out after M1 is merged by porting the new leaf CMYK. But we're going to have to decide for the other pull requests.
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff I'd love to get in, like the unified access logging one. That feels nice. But
yeah,
I guess it's awesome. Mostly about there are some pull requests that are really interesting, but others that are controversial. And I think we should, if they are controversial, we should close them. Otherwise, I mean, if we know that a pull request is not being accepted, we don't want the contributor to keep working on it without knowing that we can merge it.
Mm-hmm.
There's always extensions, especially for things that are doing file parsing. I feel like those are certainly suitable for extensions. New event publishers obviously don't really work in extensions, but yeah, he's proposing like PE file parsing, right?
Yeah, with live, so it should be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just got a binary parsing issue today, I think.
Yeah, bug in is it the shortcuts parsing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, feels like I don't know. Maybe everything on milestones and PRs, right? It sounds like we think it's important enough to get a BPF fix out, so we should try and do that as soon as those merge, and then we can check in on the M1 support before we actually cut the release. And then it's just a timing question on all that.
Okay.
On our end, I will start looking into the changes required for the osquery code sign workflow. And otherwise, I think we're pretty much there, unless Stefano remembers something I forgot.
Sorry, about what? I was...
M1.
No, I mean, what we have mentioned should missing or otherwise should be all. So, yeah, again, depend on the timelines, but I'm just mentioning this. I wouldn't say, I think it's interesting, but it's not necessarily urgent. I have, since some time, opened a PR that prevents audit, or at least should prevent audit to use too much memory. And specifically, there are rare or not rare situations where when you limit osquery CPU usage, maybe through C group, or simply if osquery doesn't have enough CPU free for the process, audit will indefinitely increase its internal event buffers, the audit implementation we have in osquery, causing osquery to exhaust all the memory. And or even before that, probably run pretty slow. So I have added some a throttling mechanism so that these various internal buffers do not grow too much and osquery is slowed down. Obviously, events could be loosed up to at a certain point, but yeah. That is the PR. So it's slightly, well, not involved, but yeah. This was reported by, again, by one of our customers, but yeah.
Sounds useful.
Sorry, and Stefano, there's a fix in for that in a PR, or?
Yep, sorry, I copied. Okay. 7329.
I mean, it sounds like it would be great to get merged before that release.
Yeah, again, I recognize there is, like, the explanation is slightly involved because, yeah, you know, there are issues with when you throttle. In a way, you risk, for instance, you can lose a spike of events. So here the attempt is to cover both cases when you have, in general, too many continuous events, or you have a spike of events. So yeah, there is an explanation in the PR. Yeah.
Zach, do you want to review this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take a look at it. I have it open here.
Okay. Sounds like it's a little involved, but also pretty reasonable. So
it's not so many lines of code, so that's nice.
Okay. I mean, I don't think I've got anything else. I don't see anything else really on this agenda.
I have a question about the breaking changes to the Augias table in osquery 5.
Yes.
Like, I'm just reading the release notes and I'm reading the PR and I'm having a hard time understanding what changed. wonder if you could.
Oh, it's real subtle.
Okay.
Let me go find that PR because I pasted something into the bottom. The last comment in that PR should be a reminder to me.
I just put the link into the chat here.
Potentially other readers of it, of what that is. 6982. I laughed because I stepped through this with someone recently on Slack. They were like, "Is this going to be a problem for my internal users?" And he concluded that no, it wasn't. Okay, so the fundamental change is in how wildcards are parsed. Previously, a GS would spit everything out, and then SQLite would do any filtering at the SQLite layer. And that meant that a wildcard character covered anything you wanted.
And sorry, before you continue, Seth, these wildcards are wildcards in the file paths or in the keys being retrieved?
Oh, no, this is where it matters, right? Because if you spit everything out and then you do filtering in SQLite, there are no file paths, they're just strings. Right? So if you take everything and you hand it to SQLite and then SQLite does the filtering with a like expression, it's just a plain string. So a single wildcard is always a full recursive infix-y wildcard. Although SQL doesn't support infix, does it, right? But you get the idea, right? Because it's just a straight string parse. A GIS operates on a tree. It's not a file system, it's a tree. And for a GIS, what I changed in this is I moved the like handling to being under a GIS, not under SQLite. Whether this was a good idea or not, we could argue, but I did. So this means that a single wildcard now operates within the confines of the tree node. So the very specific user case that this runs into is like if you do things along the lines of select star from a GIS where path like etc percent versus etc percent, the differences are all slightly subtle. Or if you run into something like select star from a GIS where path like etc hosts star or etc hosts star star, you get weird things. You get discrepancies because in SQLite, the trailing wildcard can be null, right? Select star from etc hosts. It's select star in path where etc hosts star. But in a GIS, it will actually try and descend into a tree that isn't present. I don't know if any of that made sense.
I'm looking at your table and trying to make sense of that. And can you give me like a concrete example of a query that would change?
Those 5 queries up at the top may produce different output, and I can't. You'd have to actually just paste them into a couple terminal windows.
Okay.
But like those examples are reasonable to look at.
Got it.
So it's the differences around like descending through things. And I think what's there feels more technically correct, but it might be less user-friendly. I don't know. I don't actually know how many people make real use of the GIS table in like really complicated ways, so I haven't asked it too much.
And what was the motivation for doing this?
So I was trying to debug a GIS, and the basic problem that we had is we weren't allowing traversal through the non-file parts of the Aegeus tree. So there's a whole bunch of Aegeus that is not under the files hierarchy. Namely, it's under the Aegeus hierarchy, and it's what you use to debug the Aegeus lenses.
Okay.
And we didn't allow traversal through those nodes. So I went down the route of fixing that, and then I just fell into a rabbit hole of completely rewriting the way the query syntax worked to make it more like a GIS and less like grepping on a string output.
Got it. Okay.
And maybe that last step was the wrong thing, but no one seems to use this table or really have strong feelings. So I just kind of did it because it was fun.
Sounds good.
But yeah, so like the old table really just said a GS dump everything and then we'll string filter, right? So it was like a GS print recursive pipe grep, right? Is basically what it did, with some nonsense that would limit it down to files. And then the new version actually translates the query syntax into a GS syntax and only returns the matches. This is a little silly and all, but it does provide sort of cleaner input into the other parts of the tree.
Okay. I think that's all helpful for my understanding.
I would be surprised if you actually hit anyone who was impacted by that breaking change.
I think people are more scared by the note that it's there than anything.
Yeah, the note might have been overstated. But
Well, thanks for walking me through that.
Sure. Other questions? Questions from the new attendees? Always nice to see faces.
No, I'm actually here to learn.
Welcome. Got any questions?
Thanks.
We're happy to chat.
Okay, awesome.
If not,
yeah, and if you didn't know, I recently joined the Trailer Bits team, so I work with Mike, Stefano, and Alessandro. So I've been here a couple weeks, and so far it's pretty cool.
I wasn't sure if we get introduced Adam. Here he is.
I feel like maybe I noticed that in the PR, but I might be wrong. Trailer Bits seems like a bunch of good people, so it's a good set of coworkers.
Nice. Awesome. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks.
Adam, are you a software engineer? Are you gonna be writing code like Alessandro and Stefano?
Yeah, I hope so. Hopefully as good as quality, gets merged in.
No, it's better. He's actually fixing our errors, so it's a great addition.
Oh, perfect.
That's okay. Doing a little janitorial work starting out here. That's all right.
That's all awesome. Software engineering is, really.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's everyone. Maybe we call the meeting as it is. So we can try and get some releases out and have a great November, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.